Howdy y'all, Banjo Ben here. Different kind of lesson today, but I think it's good. End of the year, our brains and our fingers can be tired, and it's good to change things up a little bit. What I want to do today is talk about your year of music. We'll call it the end of year review, and I want to lead and direct you through how to measure where you've come this year in music, and we're also going to flip over into next year and talk about setting goals and how to do that effectively. And yeah, we're just going to have fun too. Just a relaxed conversation here. And before I get too deep into that, I want to thank Gold Pick member Ryan Spillers for this beautiful, award-winning, I'm sure, Christmas sweater. It's got the banjos on it. That's the most important thing, but it also has lots of other Christmas regalia here. And I'm proud to wear it for this end of year video. I've got a question to just get us started. Why do you play music? Or let me rephrase that. Why do you follow me on the website? Why are you a Gold Pick member? Or why do you follow me on YouTube or Facebook or wherever else? The reason is probably, besides my silly antics, is to get better at your instrument, whether it be banjo or mandolin or guitar. Of course you do. And when we ask that question, how do we get better? It helps to have a teacher. And I hope that I fulfill that role in some way in your journey. But there's other things that we need to get more specific about when we answer that question. How do we get better? One would be to set goals. We're going to talk about goal setting in this lesson today, but we want to be specific with those. We can have big, wide goals, but we also want to do specific ones because an aimless, random trajectory in our musical journey will only carry us so far. And we might end up getting good at some things and we'll get comfortable with some things, but we won't progress the way that we should. The second thing we want to do is, of course, practice. But just practice. Again, aimless practice is not good enough. We need to have practice with a purpose. And that ties right in with setting our goals. And I've talked a lot about this in our Ideal Practice Session course that I released. We'll get more into that here later in the video. But that's so very important to know where you're at and where you're going to go and how to get there. You want to try to play with others. That's probably the number one thing that helps you get better, is to play with others. I know that some of you out there, it's not possible to do that. There's some of you banjo pickers in the middle of nowhere, Canada, or over in Europe somewhere that don't have bluegrass musicians around you, or even here in the States and just places where it's not popular. That's why I try to produce as many resources as I can for people like you. Things like pick-alongs, providing the jam track MP3s, finding ways to virtually allow you to play along with others. But whether it be those virtual ways or stepping outside of your comfort zone, which we're going to talk about, to play with others, that's one way that you're going to get better. Related to that, if possible, I want you to play in front of others. That's what I'm going to challenge you to do. That's a big way to get better, because when we have some kind of performance goal, learning something and having to perform it in front of others, it puts a different kind of pressure on us that helps us get better in a way that you can't really do, or it's difficult to do without that pressure. So we're going to talk about anxiety. We're going to talk about your nerves and how to overcome some of those things as we go through this video today. So in the next couple chapters of this lesson, I want to first do the year in review. So I want to walk you through how to measure and how to think through some things that you've progressed in this year. Then in the next one, we'll talk about next year and how to set goals and some ins and outs of some of those things that we might struggle with. If you are watching this here on the website as a Gold Pick member, I'd love for you to interact with me in the forum thread below and list 5 things that you've done better and 5 things that you want to get better with in the future. I'd love for us to all support each other over the next year, because when we do this next year, I want us to be able to look back over the year and see that these things really helped us. All right. The next thing I want us to think about is this current year in review. So we're going to look back over this past year, this past 12 months. Maybe you haven't been playing that long, but maybe since you started, and we want to think about what kinds of things we've progressed in. I don't think we think about this enough. I know that we don't. But when we're going forward, this is very important. I think we need to do this before we actually set goals for next year. This is your first time, if it is your first time, to look back over this last year, then it can be a little difficult because you might not have started with goals to begin with. And so now you're having to pick those supposed met goals out of thin air. But we'll fix that because going forward you'll have goals to work on. But what I want you to do is make a list of 5 things. And maybe it's easy for you to come up with those 5. Maybe it needs to be 10 things. But at least 5. And I think you can find 5. 5 things that you've improved on sometime this year, okay, over the last 12 months. And they don't have to be super specific. Again, if you don't have specific goals, it's hard to maybe pick specific victories. It could be something like, I played a little faster. I got a little faster through the year. Maybe you learned song X or you learned song Y. Maybe you look over the year and your practice schedule got more consistent or more regular. Maybe you were able to attend a jam for the first time, or maybe get involved in a weekly jam. Maybe you joined some kind of performance group, some kind of band. Maybe you got to come to a cabin camp. Those kinds of things are victories in your playing. Going back to the things we talked about earlier. Maybe you learned how to play a song in a different key or a different position than you normally do. That's a big victory, especially on banjo, right? So be thankful for those things. I want you to count your blessings. There's great value in looking back and counting your blessings. And sometimes we really have to think about those, because whenever we're just focused on the future and we're always focused on getting better, our minds don't naturally want to go back. We have to be told to remember things. That's why we have monuments, so that we can look at them and remember what happened. But we get great joy and great satisfaction whenever we look back and we see the things that we accomplished. So if you haven't had any specific goals set, just take time, write 5 things down that you think you got better at, whether it's vague or specific, and let's start there before we push into next year. Now let's turn our attention to next year. And this is really important, because when we come back around to the end of next year, we want to have something specific to look back on. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is to write down 5 goals for this next year. And honestly, those goals are going to change as you go through the year, especially if you watch my Ideal Practice Session lesson. When we talk about goals, there's short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. So you may have a mixture of that here, and as you accomplish them, you may check them off. But don't erase them, because that's one of the victories that you're going to celebrate whenever you come to the end of next year. You just maybe add more goals. But I want you to keep this manageable. Don't come up with 10 goals or 15 goals. Come up with 5 goals. Well, let's try to make them diverse. I'll give you some examples here. And let's also try to get specific so that we know for sure if we accomplished them or not. I want to encourage you, actually write them down. Okay, get a piece of paper, write them down, and post it somewhere where you're going to see it, regularly. Maybe put it in your practice room, in your instrument case, somewhere that you're going to look at. And then we'll be able to plan and attack our practice sessions with those things in mind. What's one of your goals? Is it speed? Maybe it's speed. Well, we need to know what we're working with, right? We need to have some kind of baseline measurement. So I want to call your attention again to that Ideal Practice Session, because one of the lessons in that course is how to perform a speed test. Your speeds are going to vary based on what kind of song you're playing, what you're trying to do. You can have a speed max for some exercise that you're playing, or maybe some type of fiddle tune or something like that. So you need to be organized in how you measure your speed so that you can come back and look at it, and also know when and how to test your speed. It's going to happen organically. You're just going to be able to tell, but I think it's good to actually have quantitative measurements, and especially over the course of a year, because then you can really see the progress that's happening there. Perhaps it's learning new songs. You want to grow your repertoire. Well, I want you to name those songs, and I want you to challenge yourself with that. Maybe include a song in there that you think, well, gosh, if I could learn that, that would really be something, Again, keep it realistic, but also you've got a year to work on this. So name something that would really, really satisfy you to get better at. Often the jam that you're taking part in and that you're visiting, or maybe a band or performance opportunity that you have, is going to name those songs for you, because your set list or the common songs in that jam are going to tell you which ones you need to work on. But I would encourage you to choose different songs than what you'd normally play. And what I mean by that is different styles, different keys. If you're a banjo picker and you're always playing out of G position, let's name a song or two that's played out of D, or played out of a different tuning, or played out of a C position, things like that. Jam, and more jam. So let's figure out how we can make that happen. Maybe it's something that you need to originate and that you need to get going in your living room. Maybe it's something that you have to drive away. Maybe it only happens monthly or bi-monthly. That's fine. I understand, like I said, that there's some of you that can't get to jams. At my cabin camps, I have a large percentage of people that come there that don't have jams anywhere close to them. That's kind of their outlet, is to come to cabin camps, and they get a whole weekend full of playing with other people. So maybe that can be one of your goals. If you can't get to a jam, go to banjobenevents.com. See where I'm holding cabin camps. And you will benefit. I promise you, you will benefit from the fellowship there and the camaraderie and the collaboration that comes from playing with other people. Some people think that they're not good enough to go to jams, or not good enough to come to a cabin camp. I would have to say that's a self-constructed hurdle there. Whenever I list cabin camps, I always have kind of a core curriculum that you need to work your way through before you come. But I would just encourage you to come, and I'm going to help you get to where you need to be. There's even some camps that are skill graded level that have beginner, and not that you're not welcome to the other camps, but those are specifically aimed towards getting you off the ground. So if that's where you're at, then I encourage you to look at that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. You need to set practice goals. That could be one of the things that you're going to work on this year, is setting practice goals. So maybe it's a location, maybe it's a schedule, maybe it's I'm going to practice a total of 2.5 hours per week, and hopefully that looks like 30 minutes a day for 5 days, but whatever it is. And I want you to write that down. That'll be one of your goals that you're going to, one of the 5 things that you want to get better at. Or sometimes I like to tie it to a location because it helps keep me accountable. Maybe every time I come into this area daily, I pick up an instrument, things like that. I like to try to tie goals, relate them together so that I'm more inclined to do that. Again, I'm going to point you to that ideal practice session course, because in that course, I talk about the goal setting, yes, but it's all about practice and how to structure your actual practice hour or half hour. So after you watch that course, you will never, ever again sit down to practice and wonder what you need to work on. You're going to have a system to know what to work through, aiming towards these goals that you're setting. Maybe you need to work on your nerves, on your anxiety. I know I have some people that when they come to cabin camps, they really struggle with that. And I just know a lot of people that whenever I ask them about going to jams, they're like, oh, I could never do that. I'm not good enough. And I understand that, because believe it or not, I've struggled with some performance anxiety. It might look a little different than yours. We're all a little different, but I get incredibly nervous at times still to perform. It's very interesting. I don't get nervous to perform on bigger stages, whether that be just more prominent or more people. I end up getting more nervous whenever I'm playing around people that I know, or that I imagine that they expect a lot of me. So, going back home for Christmas, holidays, sitting around playing for the family, and people know what I do for a living, or they know that you've been learning banjo or whatever it is, and now they lay the expectation out there, and it can create some nerves and anxiety. I just want to encourage you in that. And one of the ways that I combat that is, I think about what really matters, and what really matters is not how good of players we are. I hate to break that to you. I mean, some people believe that, but that's not true. The truth of your value and your worth is not based on how good you can play an instrument. And so if there's people out there that base their view of you on how well you can play an instrument, well, those aren't people that you really need to be concerned about. And I have to remember that when I'm playing around family, I start to get nervous. I think, Are they going to think differently and love me differently because I don't play a certain way? No, of course not. And if they do, then something's wrong with them, right? So whenever I just think about it that way, then I think, okay, I can just let go and I can just be who I'm going to be. And if I mess up, I mess up. And then that helps me actually perform better. So maybe that's just a little tidbit there, something I've learned over the years that maybe that will help you. But when it comes to nerves and anxiety, and some people really, really struggle with that, and I know that you do. And some people, it seems way beyond the mental. It actually becomes physiological, and you start shaking just at the thought of something, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But let me just encourage you, at whatever level that you have of anxiety, that it's not going to get better unless you face it. It's just the way it is. So if it's really something that you want to overcome, then you've got to set goals to overcome it. And the more that you face it, the better it will get. It really will. And I tell you that, I wish I had some of my cabin campers here to give you testimony on that. Because I've had cabin campers that have come for years in a row and could barely control their hand when they first would get to camp, even though there's no pressure put on them to perform. This was self-induced. They'll tell you that. To watching them come back to a second and a third, sometimes a fourth, fifth camp, and step up to a microphone with swagger, with healthy swagger, and nail a solo, or stand in a jam and play songs that are maybe even above their skill level, but give it a good try and have fun doing it. And I love talking to those folks and seeing their growth and learning about their progress. And it always boils down to the same thing: is I just kept trying. So I just want to encourage you. I wanted to end the video on this because maybe you're watching this, watching it to the end because that's something that you struggle with. And I just want to encourage you that you've got to set goals on that too. You've got to look it in the face, and there's small ways that you can get over that. And I'll end with that. One of the ways, and this is good for all of us, this isn't just for folks that have issues with anxiety. This is for everybody. One of the best ways that you can get better is to record yourself. Recording yourself, because it doesn't lie about what you do and what kind of notes you play. It's a very objective judge to how you play. And we hear things in our playing and see things in our playing whenever we record ourselves that we would never detect in real time while we're doing it. And one of the things that you can do as a Gold Pick member is you can record yourself playing something, upload it to the forum in the video swap area, and I will watch it and give you some healthy, kind critique of your playing. And so for some of you, you need to make that a goal. You need to make that a goal for this next year, that once this next year, you're going to record yourself playing something and put it up there. And here's what I want you to remember, because I know what's going to happen. You're going to record it 50,000 times before you upload it. I know how that goes. I want you to remember that my view of you and my love for you is not based on how well you play in that video. It's not. So you can get that out of your mind and instead embrace the help that I can give you whenever you upload that video. And I know it's not going to be perfect. Mine wouldn't be perfect. You ought to see me recording my lessons. I can take all day on a lesson sometimes. So I just wanted you to be encouraged in that. Again, I wanted this talk today, lesson, whatever you want to call it, to be an encouragement for you. Yes, an exhortation, and yes, a challenge, but also an encouragement that you've gotten better this year, whether you realize it or not, and it's possible for you to continue to get better if you approach it with purpose and if you challenge yourself in the areas that you need to be challenged. And I think we all deep down know where that is. And if you don't think you have anywhere to be challenged, there's another issue going on. But you can reach out to me and I'll upload a video and I'll challenge you on something. And in a loving way. And that's what I'm here for. So thank you for being a Gold Pick member. Thank you for watching this. And I would love to hear your feedback about 5 of the things that you're going to work on. And write down and put in front of your practice area and keep in front of your mind as you progress through this next year. And I'm really excited to hear more next year at the end of the year on how you progress through those goals and the kind of progress that you made. So good luck on all your playing. Use the site to its full potential. There's so much there. And use the forum to its full potential, because there's a whole crowd of folks over there that love to help one another. It's a wonderful community. and we can spur you on. So if you're needing that encouragement, especially if you're not around other pickers, come to that forum, take part in that. We'll help you get better over this next year.